And I will, acting in the chair, defer to Senator Casey for the first questions.
Well, thanks very much. I want to thank our panel, and Rick Creech, thank you in particular. I'm, of course, showing deference to Pennsylvania, and I'm sure the other witnesses will grant me that privilege, at least for part of the hearing. But, Rick, I'll start with you. You mentioned in your testimony that your assistive technology keeps you connected to others, that it combats isolation and allows you to interact with those around you. You also tell us that for you, your technology costs about $200,000, which is quite an investment. So here's my question. First of all, how do you pay for your technology, and what would life be like without it? That's one question, and maybe I'll continue on so we have it all in one. And since you work with so many other people who need assistive technology to keep them connected, how should the federal government be supporting the costs of assistive technology so that others may stay connected with their communities and live independently?
My employer's insurance paid for my powered wheelchair and my Accent 1400, my communication device. That is one reason that I am not planning on retiring anytime soon. That, and the mortgage on my house. The Office of Vocational Rehabilitation in Pennsylvania helped pay for my van conversion. The Office of Vocational Rehabilitation only will help pay if I am working or wanted to work. Another reason I am not retiring anytime soon. My personal care aide, who is not technology, but certainly is assistive, is subsidized by a state program. My smart home technology, I am paying for, piece by piece. One of biggest breakdowns is in transportation. Too often paratransit buses are unreliable. I have been told that drivers can be rude, although I have never experienced that myself. What I have experienced are vans being late, or not coming, being taken on a 90-minute ride, when where I needed to go was 10 minutes from my home. My powered wheelchair not being fastened down properly. I absolutely love this one. My van breaks down, so paratransit is called. Someone tells my wife that I cannot use paratransit because I am not registered. You have to register every 6 months. If you don't, you are dropped from registered users. I guess they figured you're dead. So, my wife says, how can I re-register? They say, first I will have to get a doctor's note saying that I need paratransit. Then I will have to go down to the paratransit office, in person, to get a photo ID. My wife stopped them right there, and asked how about if I rent a new haul trailer, load my husband and his powered wheelchair in it, and drop him off at your front door. They replied, oh, no, you cannot do that. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to process his registration and put him on the schedule. My wife hung up. So, the short answer to your question: get us decent and reliable transportation.
Rick, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank
you. And if I could ask, Mr. Creech, you don't use hearing aids, but you do use technology to help you communicate. Could you just say a brief word about the importance of access to technology so that you can stay engaged with your friends and colleagues?
If I did not have access to technology, I would be in a nursing home, in my pajamas, being pushed in a manual wheelchair, in front of a television, until my brain turned to mush that not even zombies would eat.
Thank you, Mr.
Assistive
Creech.
technology has to be affordable, and it is not.
Yes,
I
powerful.
am trying to build a smart home system through Amazon Echo and my smartphone. I will be paying $30 a month for 3 years for the phone. The Amazon Echo $175. The Echo Dot, which I will need in every room, is $40 each. A smart thermostat will be $275 plus installation. Smart keyless lock $250. Smart ceiling fans and lights, $400 each. I have not even checked into smart televisions and appliances. This wonderful smart home thing holds a lot of promise, but just like any other assistive technology, people with disabilities cannot afford this amazing technology without funding assistance. The cost of not providing assistive technology would be more than the country could afford in lost productivity, in lost creativity, in lost humanity, and in increased medical cost, in increased personal care cost, and an increased cost to family members who would have to stay home to care for their loved ones, instead of being free to work outside of the home.
Thank you very much. It's a powerful statement about the importance of technology. And on hearing aids, I just want to say they should not be reserved for the privileged few who can afford $5,000 in order to have some assistance. I just want to say this is why I've introduced bipartisan legislation with Senator Grassley, Senator Isaacson, and Senator Hassan that would implement the recommendations of the National Academy's panel and create an FDA-regulated category of safe and effective over-the-counter hearing aids. It's been endorsed by the AARP, by the Gerontological Society of America, and by the American Doctors of Audiology, a leading group of health practitioners who deal in hearing aids. You know, one way to tackle the problem of loneliness and isolation and depression for some older adults is to cut the cost of hearing aids so they have a chance to participate in conversations with other people. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for letting me have a little extra time.
Thank you. And Mr. Creech, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing your story. In addition to the technology that has been so important to you and it's allowed you to connect with people and communicate, are there other steps that you have taken to overcome isolation?
The loneliest time in my life was during childhood. I had no friends. My outings out of my home was limited to the churches my father pastored. My days were spent in my home trying to find ways to fight boredom. I had plenty of toys, with some I could actually play. I was always able to bamboozle my parents into letting me have a dog, or a cat. The same way, I bamboozled my wife into letting my youngest son have a dog. And we have had dogs in the house ever since. There was nothing for me to do except watch TV or read books. I found that I much preferred my books over TV. Back then my communication was limited to the typewriter and an alphabet board. Have you tried to communicate with someone who used an alphabet/word board? Most people cannot. My experience has been after you finished spelling the third word, they forget what was the first word you spelled. You dare not use words that have over 2 syllables, else you will completely mess up your communication partner's mind. I don't know if you have watched the television show Speechless. JJ on that show supposedly uses an alphabet/word board with an optical head pointer, and he is able to point to a few squares on the board, and his aide comes out with these correct sentences. That's not how it works in the real world, folks. When I used an alphabet board, I was lucky to get 3 simple words together before blowing the other person's mind. And what teenager wants to talk with friends through a grown adult reading over his or her shoulder? I am flabbergastic every time I see that in the show.
Thank you. Senator Casey.
Madam Chair, thanks very much. Rick, I was thinking as you're giving testimony today and telling your own story, you know, you said in your testimony, you said, quote, "I am no good at chit-chatting," unquote. You know, after all this time, Madam Chair, chit-chatting is so yesterday, isn't it? But I have two final questions, 2 serious questions that involves, Rick, part of your family story. You shared with the committee that your mother has Alzheimer's disease. The committee recently held a hearing on the topic and continues to advocate for medical research funding that will one day lead to a cure for funding to support those who are caring for family members with Alzheimer's. However, the disease can also lead to isolation for the individual diagnosed and their family. So 2 questions in one. How has your mother's diagnosis changed your interaction with her? And has it resulted in any feelings of isolation for you?
This is hard for me to put into words. For 28 years, my mom was life. She fed, she dressed, she bathed me. For 28 years, she was the first face I saw in the mornings and the last face I saw at nights. Ever since she went to a nursing facility, I have not been able to call her on the phone. This afternoon I will be going down to North Carolina to visit Mom. I do not know if she is going to recognize me. This is the woman who a few years ago gave my wife a box full of old papers of everything that I had typed since I was 8 years old. I thought, OMG, what other potentially embarrassing things has she kept? This is the woman who during my first year of college, because I had gotten a mouthful of mouth ulcers and could not eat, came and stayed in my dorm for a month and nursed me back to health, so that I would not have to drop out and go back home. Mom is not here anymore. What lingers is the shell that used to contain my precious mother. Mom is gone as certainly as Dad is gone. I feel like a captain of a sailing ship after the stars have fallen, and the sun will not show itself. All I have is my memory of them, and the principles they instilled in me to guide me through.
Rick, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Casey. I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today, for your patience.